Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going deep on something that kind of feels like it's straight out of science fiction.
Yeah, it's a bit mind-bending,
We're going to be talking about why humans might actually choose to build a matrix.
especially as AGI, artificial general intelligence, gets more and more powerful. It's a question that's popping up more and more in research circles.
So, we've got some fascinating source material to dive into today. There's this paper, Why Humans Might Build a Matrix to Stay Challenged, given AGI, and a bunch of other research that kind of backs it up.
Exactly. We'll be pulling from all of that.
It's wild to think about, right? Like, instead of fighting against some robot uprising, we're like, hey, build us a simulation.
Right. Sounds a little paradoxical.
So, what's the big idea here? Why would we even want a matrix in the first place?
Well, the paper argues it's not about escaping reality.
Okay, so it's not just about plugging in and tuning out.
Not exactly. It's more about understanding reality, maybe even shaping it in a way. And it all kind of hinges on what AGI could do.
AGI, that's a big one.
Yeah.
What, like having a super intelligent computer that can solve any problem?
Yeah, pretty much. Think about it. AGI could tackle complex problems, come up with crazy innovations in every industry you can imagine. Basically, it could do anything intellectually that a human can, but like way better and faster.
That is mind blowing. But I imagine that comes with a whole lot of potential problems, too.
Definitely. And the paper digs into that too. Like, what happens to jobs when a machine can do most of them?
Yeah, that's a big one. Everyone's got to work, right?
Right. But it also talks about how AGI could create all new jobs and opportunities, stuff we can't even imagine yet.
So, some serious disruption, but maybe some really cool stuff, too.
Exactly. The paper really emphasizes that the economic implications are huge, for better or worse. Like businesses that figure out how to use AGI effectively, they're going to have a major advantage.
So we're talking like a total societal shift, and the Matrix is being presented as a way to navigate that.
It's one idea, yeah. The paper dives into three main reasons why humans might go down that road:
Lay 'em on me.
awareness, collaboration, and personal growth.
Hmm, okay. Those sound pretty broad. Let's start with awareness. What does that even mean when we're talking about living in a simulation?
Think about all the systems that kind of control our lives,
Hmm.
right? Like social norms or even the algorithms that decide what we see online.
Yeah, that stuff's everywhere.
Right. And a lot of the time, we don't even realize how much those systems are influencing us. A matrix, though, that could be a way to see those systems in action.
Kind of like holding them under a microscope.
Exactly. You'd get to see the puppet strings, so to speak.
It's like those documentaries about like isolated tribes encountering the modern world for the first time. They had no idea about all the technology and stuff that shapes our lives.
It's a good analogy. A matrix could give us that same kind of outsider perspective, help us understand the forces that shape our thoughts and behaviors, even our values.
That's pretty wild. Okay, so that's awareness. What about collaboration? How does a matrix help us work together better?
Well, imagine scientists from all over the world working together in a virtual lab, sharing data in real time, making discoveries way faster. Or picture urban planners collaborating on a simulated city, trying to figure out how to make traffic flow better and reduce pollution.
So it's about removing those physical barriers that keep people apart.
Exactly. A matrix could connect us in ways we can't even imagine right now.
But wouldn't that lead to a lot of groupthink? You know, like everyone just agreeing with the loudest voice in the virtual room?
That's a valid concern. And the paper acknowledges that. It talks about how important it would be to design a matrix that encourages diverse perspectives and dissent.
So you wouldn't want to create an echo chamber.
Definitely not.
Okay, so we've got awareness and collaboration. Now, tell me about personal growth. How would plugging into a matrix help us become better versions of ourselves?
Well, think about it. As humans, we crave challenge, right? If things are too easy, we get bored, we stagnate,
I can definitely relate to that.
right? And a matrix with the right kind of challenges built in could be like the ultimate self-improvement tool.
Kind of like choosing a difficulty setting in a video game.
Perfect analogy. You want it hard enough to keep you engaged, but not impossible.
So you could learn new skills, push yourself further, all within this controlled environment.
Exactly. And the source material even ties this back to your learner profile. You love new knowledge, pushing your boundaries, right? A matrix could be a custom-designed learning environment just for you.
Okay, I see the appeal. But is there a risk that we become like too dependent on the matrix for that sense of accomplishment? What happens when we have to deal with the real world again?
That's the big question. And it leads us right into the next part of our discussion.
So we were just talking about that comfort trap, that a matrix could make us soft, too used to having everything perfectly tailored to our needs.
Right, and it's a real concern. But what about our emotions? Like, how will those even work in a simulated world?
Yeah, that's a good one. If it's all fake, would we even feel anything real?
Well, the research is kind of surprising. There's evidence that simulated environments can actually trigger real emotions.
Wait, so even if I know I'm in a matrix, my brain's still going to react like it's all real?
It seems that way, which raises some interesting questions about, like, manipulation.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see that. If someone can design a simulation to make you feel a certain way,
Exactly. It's a bit of an ethical minefield. Who gets to decide what's appropriate emotional stimulation in a matrix?
that's kind of creepy, to be honest, like being emotionally programmed.
It's definitely something to think about.
Hmm.
And the paper doesn't pretend to have all the answers. It just wants us to be aware of the implications, of blurring the lines between real and simulated emotions.
Right. But are there any potential upsides to how a matrix could affect our emotions?
Oh, absolutely. Imagine being able to, like, face your fears in a controlled environment. The stakes are lower, but you still get that real emotional response.
So, kind of like exposure therapy, but in the matrix?
Exactly. Or you could practice having tough conversations, you know, get better at communicating without worrying about real-world consequences.
That's a good point. It'd be like an emotional training ground.
Yeah, a safe space to experiment and grow. The paper even connects this idea to something we're dealing with right now, nature deprivation.
Oh, yeah, more and more people are living in cities disconnected from nature.
Exactly. So what if a matrix could provide those nature experiences, but virtually? Like, imagine walking through a forest, feeling the breeze, hearing the birds.
Sounds amazing. But would it really be the same as the real thing?
That's the big question. Would it enhance our connection to nature, or would it become a substitute for it?
And if we can get our nature fix in the matrix, would we even care about protecting the real environment?
That's the debate. The paper doesn't say it has all the answers. It's more about making us think about these complex connections, between technology, psychology, and our relationship with nature.
It's a lot to wrap your head around. So far, we've talked about why people might want a matrix, the psychology of emotions in a simulated world, even some ethical dilemmas. But how would we actually build this thing? It all seems so theoretical.
Well, the source material gets pretty specific about implementation. It argues that we're already seeing the beginnings of matrix-like structures in some organizations.
You mentioned those agile teams before, right? How they work across different departments.
Exactly. That's a
Uh,
good example of a micromatrix, breaking down silos, fostering collaboration.
So instead of everyone having their own little box, it's more about working together in a network.
Yeah, exactly. And to succeed in that kind of environment, you need to be adaptable, a good communicator,
Hmm.
able to see the big picture. Those are the same skills you'd need in a full-on matrix.
So maybe these workplace trends are kind of getting us ready for a matrix future. What other examples are out there?
Well, think about online learning. Platforms like Coursera or edX, they've created these huge virtual spaces where people can connect with instructors and other students from all over the world.
It's like a global classroom without the actual classroom.
Exactly. No geographical boundaries. You can learn at your own pace. It's a pretty matrix-like concept.
And those platforms are always evolving. They're using AI and virtual reality to make the experience even more immersive.
Right. So those students are getting a taste of what a matrix could be like.
Learning and collaborating in simulated environment.
Pretty much. And even in our personal lives, we see similar stuff happening. Think about social media, online
Oh,
communities.
yeah, we're all plugged into that stuff.
And in a way, they're creating their own simulated realities,
Yeah.
right? With their own rules, their own social hierarchies. We create avatars, build profiles, connect with people who share our interests. It's like virtual world building.
That's an interesting way to think about it. We're already spending so much time in these digital spaces, creating online personas, even feeling real emotions based on what happens there.
It's true. And as technology keeps advancing, those lines between the physical and digital are going to get even blurrier. That's why it's so important to be having these conversations now.
Right. We need to think about where all of this is headed. So, what's the main takeaway for our listeners? What should they be paying attention to as they interact with these, proto matrix structures?
I think awareness is key. Notice how these structures are already shaping your world. Pay attention to the ways you're relying on algorithms and simulations to make decisions, or even to have experiences.
So it's not about rejecting technology or anything,
No, it's about engaging with it thoughtfully, with open eyes.
being mindful of how it's affecting us.
Exactly. Ask yourself, what parts of your work or even your personal life are already being shaped by simulations? How is that impacting your relationships, your sense of self, even your understanding of the world?
It's a lot to think about. But it's clear that this Matrix future we've been discussing isn't just some far off fantasy, it's happening now.
It is. And the choices we make today are going to shape what that future looks like. The paper we've been talking about, it doesn't give us all the answers, but it does give us a way to think about these things, to make informed decisions.
It's been a really thought provoking conversation. Thanks for taking us through it.
My pleasure.
And to everyone listening, remember that the future isn't something that just happens to us, we create it. So stay curious, stay engaged, and keep asking those tough questions. Until next time.
So last couple parts of this deep dive.